I love that, man. This is the sound of the dry bones rattling. Woo! I mean, I felt that. Did you feel that? I felt it. Yes? I can't see very well with the lights. Hey, so I realize that there are a couple things I want to say before I get started. I typically say a shout out to some folks who are watching online, but I'm only able to see their names on Facebook, the Facebook feed. But we have other feeds too. There are actually more people that watch through YouTube, our YouTube channel. And I apologize, I can't see who those folks are, but I do occasionally find out through other means. And so I want to give a shout out today to Brittany, who is watching. I think, from what I understand, she watches faithfully every Sunday morning at 11 a.m., and she puts this up on her big screen TV, which that's why with YouTube you can put it on the TV. Facebook, not so much, right? So I am coming into Brittany. I'm coming into your living room right now on your 70-inch screen and saying, hey, so glad you're watching, Brittany, and everybody else, too, who are, if you're watching. I don't know if you know, but we're in the middle of a sacred time of year called March Madness. And it's the big dance, as they say, on the way to the Final Four. And I am an avid follower, and I have filled out bracket. Me and my brothers and cousins actually play every year for a trophy that travels around, and I am the winner of that trophy right now, last year, and I'm doing pretty good this year. How many of you do that, fill out a bracket? Okay. Oh, good. I decided I would do an Asbury bracket this year, and I sent an email to a bunch of folks. Probably 100 of you. Only 4 people responded. And I was a little disappointed, I have to say, but I'm glad for those who responded. And I wanted to let you know that I was shocked, absolutely shocked. I was doing so well. 99, as of yesterday, 99.3 of my picks had made it. I was at 99.3%. And then I look at the Asbury tournament, the bracket challenge, and there is Bill Barmore at 99.9%. Bill Barmore. Bill, I wonder if you would just stand up, because this is worthy of recognition. There he is. Bill Barmore, everybody. I mean, amazing. Amazing. I bow before you. Okay. Amazing. Okay. Enough of that. We're going to continue this series. It's week 5 of the Something Has to Give series. 6 stories that we are invited to release. And so today, the story comes from John chapter 11. It's actually 1 through 45, and I think I mentioned this to you last week, that these texts for Lent in the Gospels are very long. This is the 3rd week of a very long text, and 4th week maybe. And so I am not going to read all 45 verses to you, or 46, so you're welcome. And I have adapted it so we can read it. I haven't changed the meaning. I've just adapted it so we can read it, the story together. So, and this is I think one of the most powerful stories in the Gospel of John. This raising of Lazarus. It's a story about grief, and a story about hope, and ultimately, it seems like it's this story that the voice of Jesus calls life out of what seems lost. It's an amazing story. I still am, after all these years of hearing this story, I still think I'm still trying to get access to what it fully means. And every time I read it, there's something else that opens up for me. So let's read this together, or I'll read it, and it'll be on the screen. And the story of the raising of Lazarus. There was a man named Lazarus was ill. He lived in Bethany with his sisters Mary and Martha. Then the sister sent word to Jesus saying, the one you love is ill. He's sick. And when Jesus heard this, he said that the illness would serve God's glory. And though Jesus loved Martha and Mary and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. And then he said to his disciples, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going to wake him up. After speaking with them, Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died, let us go to him. So when Jesus arrived in Bethany, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. And when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. And Jesus said to her, your brothers will rise again. And Martha replied, I know he'll rise in the resurrection on the last day. And Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me live, even though they die. Do you believe this? And she said, yes, Lord, I believe you are the Christ, God's Son. And then Mary came to Jesus and fell at his feet, saying, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And when Jesus saw her weeping and the people with her weeping, he was deeply moved. And he asked, where have you laid him? And they said, Lord, come and see. And Jesus began to weep. Then he came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone across the entrance. And Jesus said, remove the stone. And Martha said, Lord, the smell will be awful. He has been dead 4 days. And Jesus replied, didn't I tell you that if you believed, you would see God's glory? So they removed the stone. Then Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with burial cloths and his face wrapped in a cloth. And Jesus said to them, untie him and let him go. And many who witnessed what Jesus did came to believe in him. That is just an amazing story. And it's the Word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Hey, I wonder if we just take just a deep breath, okay? Just a time of silence. You can close your eyes or not, it doesn't matter, but just breathe for a second. Folks, if you're watching online, do the same thing. We don't get a chance just to stop and just take a breath in this crazy world that we live in. And maybe breathe in some of the grace of God in your life. Each breath is the grace of God in your life. And breathe that out to those around you. To your friends, your family, maybe even to this world. And now, Lord, may the meditation of the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts, all of our hearts together, be acceptable in your sight. You are our rock and Redeemer. And everybody said, amen. So every time I hear the story of Lazarus, I find myself thinking about a painting that I have in my office, and this is the painting. Maybe some of you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, you just come by my office and you can see it. I'd love for you to look at it. The painting is called Jesus Wept, and I picture this as Jesus holding Lazarus as Lazarus has just come out of the tomb, and he is still wrapped in the clothes of death. And you can see that the colors are they're dark, but there's, I don't know, these deep reds and these shadows. that draw you in. And I guess for me, you can almost feel the full weight of this, of Lazarus in Jesus' chest as he sort of leans into him, and Jesus holds him. And so the title of that painting, comes from that John 11:35, right? The shortest verse in the Bible. We read the contemporary English Bible. It doesn't say it just like that, but most translations say Jesus wept. 2 words, right? 2 words. 2-word sentence. A 2-word sentence that I think actually tells us a lot, maybe more than we might expect about the heart of God. Maybe mainly that I think it's really important for us to understand that God does not stand at a distance from our grief, even though it may feel that way. It often does, doesn't it? But God doesn't stand at a distance from our grief. Instead, God steps into it, holding us in the middle of that. And that moment, Jesus weeping outside the tomb of his friend, I think touches something very real in our lives, because every once in a while, I think there is another sentence that slips into our lives that feels just as final as this tomb. And it's not 2 words, it's a 3-word sentence. And that sentence is, it's too late. It's too late. Too late to repair that relationship, too late to for some kind of healing, too late for anything to happen here. It's just too late. And once that sentence, it's too late, settles into the heart, it can begin to feel like a final verdict. It's done. But maybe, just maybe, that's not the whole story. And I think that's why this story matters so much, the story of Lazarus. So looking at the story a little bit, the strange thing about it is that you notice this, right? That Jesus does not rush. He is in no hurry. In fact, it feels like he's taking his sweet time after he learns that his friend Lazarus is ill. He just waits. He doesn't wait just a few minutes. It's not just a few hours. Jesus waits for 2 days. Don't you find this interesting? He waits for 2 days before he goes, which means that by the time Jesus finally gets to Bethany, where Lazarus is, Lazarus has been dead 4 days. Think about it. 4 days. In the world that Jesus lived, people believed that the spirit lingered near the body after it had passed for 3 days. You know that? They believed it lingered around for 3 days. But after that, all hope was gone. Right? That was it. Day 4 meant something final, very final. In other words, for Mary and Martha and the people there, this is not a crisis anymore. This is a funeral. And finally, as Jesus approaches, Martha meets him on the road, and she says what any of us would say in that kind of circumstance: Lord, you know what? If you had been here, my brother would not have died. And you can feel it, right? You can hear the sort of mixture of faith and also frustration and this sort of if only. If only you had come sooner. If only things had gone differently. If only. You know that phrase, don't you? You know it. This is what she's saying. Another way of saying it's too late. And then Martha says something else, something that I think opens a crack in the door of hope. She says, but even now. She goes from, if you, only you had been here, to even now. Even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Even now. I just love that sort of, if only, and then there is this even now. And that might be one of the most hopeful, hope-filled phrases in all of Scripture. Because it pushes back against the voice in our heads that says, it's too late. The story doesn't get easier from there. Jesus goes to the tomb, and Martha, as they get to the tomb, Martha says the quiet part out loud that everybody's thinking, Lord, the smell is going to be awful. He has been dead 4 days, which is another way of saying, look, this has gone too far. This is beyond fixing. This is not a moment for hope, because this is not some sort of theoretical exercise anymore. This is real. You can smell it. You can feel it. You can see it. You can even taste it. This is a grief you cannot undo. This is a situation that has moved well beyond repair. And still, Jesus says, remove the stone. Which means someone has to step forward. Someone has to get involved. Not Jesus. Someone in the community has to step forward. Someone has to touch that stone. Someone has to risk believing that something could happen when everything they know thinks it won't. And then he cries out, Lazarus, come out. And guess what? The man who was dead walks out. That's amazing to me. You know, I think one of the most honest questions this story may ask of us is something like, where has this three-word sentence settled into your life? Where is the three-word sentence, it's too late? Where has that settled into your life? Too late for a relationship to heal, too late to change the behavior, too late to forgive, too late to start again, too late for hope to actually find its way back in. It's just too late. Where has that sentence settled into your life? I remember talking with a friend who had been going through a lot. Cancer treatments, one after another, for months and months and months, and from remission to reoccurrence, and even a bone marrow transplant. And it had been a very, very long journey, and so I was sitting in this living room, and we started talking about hope, because I was just interested in what it's like to hope for him, what it's like to hope when you're facing something like that. Especially when, for him, there was this growing possibility that the treatment was not going to work. And we were talking, and when I asked him how he was able to face everything he was going through and still remain remarkably positive, he said something to me that just landed with me. He said, I've heard a lot of people talk about hope, and I heard someone say once that was really helpful to me. And this person said that they said, I don't feel hopeful, and I don't feel hopeless. What I mostly feel is hope some. What I mostly feel is hope some. I thought how, I don't know, beautifully honest that is. I guess because the truth is, that there's not a single one of us in this room who is all or nothing, right? We're not always loving. We're not always patient. We're not always strong. We're not always kind. And even when it comes to hope, we are not always hopeful. We're not always hopeless. Most of the time, we are probably hope some. Yes? And having some hope is what gets most of us through the day. And maybe that's exactly, at least part of where the story meets us, the story of Lazarus, because sometimes this sort of even now declaration of Martha, it may not feel like it's totally certain. It feels like it's just enough, right? Just enough. Just enough light that helps us take the next step, just enough hope to keep going, just enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, it's not too late. And we all have places like that, right? Places where we've closed off, or where places that we have already declared is finished, done. Places we've stopped expecting anything new to happen at all. We all have places like that. But I was thinking, what if Martha's words are meant for us too? What if Martha's words are meant for you and me, even now? There's a light that's turned off can be turned back on again. A door that's been closed can be opened again. And a story that feels finished actually can have a few more chapters added, even now. I wanted you to notice something, too, in this story. That, do you notice that when Lazarus comes out of the tomb, he's alive, but he is not free? Do you notice that? He is still wrapped up. He's still bound in these cloths of death. And Jesus is not the one who removes them. Instead, he turns to the people who are standing there, and he says to the people in that community, all the people gathered there, he says, you untie him. You let him go. I'm not doing that. You do it. You untie him and you let him go, which I think means something like the resurrection may begin with Jesus, but guess what? The unbinding happens in community. And we actually need each other for that. People like you, people like me, people in a place like this, we need one another to help unwrap what has been holding us. We need people who help untie what's binding us, people who will sit with us, people who will walk with us, people who help us live into even now. We don't do it alone. Let me tell you one more story. I was talking with a young woman about years ago about her recovery from addiction and her ongoing recovery. And, she told me about her mom's relentless hope for her. Her mom's relentless hope for her, especially even when she was deep in the throes of the darkness of her addiction. And she said there was this moment when she and her mom were sitting in the car, And her mom was trying, almost desperately, trying to get her to go to treatment. And they were going back and forth, and she said, everything in me resisted what my mom was telling me. Everything in me was pushing back. And then she said this. She said, I realized in that moment, in the car, I realized in that moment that I hated the hope she had for me. Amazing. I hated the hope my mother had for me. Of course, this is the addiction talking, right? And here's the thing. When her addiction eventually took her to a place where she felt like she had lost all hope, she remembered her mother's hope. And somehow, that hope that she once hated, that she once resisted, became the hope that carried her. It was that hope that gave her the courage to surrender, to name the powerlessness, to ask for help, to begin again. Her mother hoped for her until she could hope for herself. And the hope she hated became the hope that healed. I don't know about you, but I'm amazed by that. You? And maybe that's another thing this story is showing us. We don't hope alone. We borrow it. We borrow hope from each other. We carry it for each other. We hold it. We hold hope when someone else can't. And sometimes the most faithful thing we can do is hope for someone else until they can hope again. That's what this kind of community of faith is all about. There is a secret medicine given only to those who hurt so hard they cannot hope, writes Rumi. A secret medicine given only to those who hurt so hard they cannot hope. Look as long as you can at the friend you love. That's the secret medicine. Look as long as you can at the friend you love. We hope in the company of others. And that's what the community of faith is meant to be, Asbury. That's what we are meant to be together. A place where we help each other navigate the space between it's too late and even now. So maybe that's the story that has to give. Maybe today that's, for you, maybe, some of you, that's the story that has to give. The one that says, it's too late. Maybe that's the story that has to give. Because we know, at least from what the story says, that in the presence of God, there is always an even now. Even now, look, God is not finished with you. Even now, the grace of God is still at work in you and around you and among you. Even now, something can be restored. Even now, new life can happen. Even now.